seems to be.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the second Proving Grounds Open Circuit Qualifier. I'm Matt Cubby Samuelson, and I'm excited. I do not have to use my big brain. Fortunately, I've got two big brains next to me to help get us through the day and help bring you all the action. Joining me today, it's going to be my good friends Sam Smacks Hyde and Tanner Zoo Deegan as we dive into the first rounds of Group C and D today on this stream at twitch.tv/unified live. Gentlemen, how you doing?
You know, Cubby, I'm glad you brought up my big brain, because with Unified officially making you host and me analyst, that does confirm that they think I'm smarter than you. So that's at least somebody out there who thinks that. I'm excited for the games today.
All right, and Zoo, I know we got a couple series that might be a familiar face for you as well. How you doing today?
Yeah, man. I mean, I haven't worked for Maryville in 5+ months. They can't seem to get rid of me, man. I think this is the fourth Maryville series I've been on the desk for out of 5. So, I mean, hey, who else better to have, though?
Well, hey, glad to have your expertise in collegiate and, of course, your expertise with Maryville. But, guys, before we hop into our matchup today, do have to do some housekeeping at first, as we have to talk about the tournament and also where we're at the moment. As, of course, this is the second Open Qualifier, which means we already have a lot of points on the board from the first Open Qualifier. And I know that we have a graphic we're going to be flying up. Here we go. Some familiar faces on this list, but, of course, every team fighting for that top 10 placement to hopefully hop into Proving Grounds. Of course, the top 6 gets you in. I believe 7 through 8 gets you placement matches against our bottom 4 academy teams. And of course, we do have a few contenders as well trying to hop in the standings too. I know we also saw quite a bit of action yesterday.
Yeah.
We are going to go over that in a sec, as I know that our 2 top teams on this standing ended up taking some wins yesterday in some interesting fashion. But in case you're new here, in case you tuned into the twitch.tv/academy stream looking for Academy, this is amateur. This is the Open Qualifier tournament to get to Proving Grounds. And to help give us a little bit more details about what this tournament is, we're going to be joined by Jolly with a breakdown of what this tournament looks like.
Welcome to the Proving Grounds Circuit Qualifier number 2, presented by Unified. 32 teams will face off in a 5-round Swiss Open Qualifier to decide who will advance to the 16-team group stage. The Swiss format matches teams with the same record against each other as the rounds progress, meaning in round 2, the 1-0 teams will play each other, while the 0-1 teams play each other, and so on. The 16 teams to reach 3 wins by the end of round 5 will move on to compete in groups, where they will be seeded based on their records and play in a best-of-3 double elimination bracket to decide who will advance to the playoffs. The playoffs will be single elim best-of-3 matches up until the grand final best-of-5 series. Teams will earn points based on their overall performance. Here's how the numbers break down. The top 10 amateur teams across the 2 tournaments will qualify for Proving Grounds. Got it? Good. The action starts soon, so make sure you catch all the games at twitch.tv/academy and the Unified Twitch channels. Which of these aspiring champions will rise to the top in 2022? Come see for yourself.
Now, of course, we are in the group stage, so we have Group D on this stream today, Group C on twitch.tv/unified live, going live soon. But we also have already had some action from yesterday, as I know, Smacks, you were around for those games. Break it down. We already have had some craziness early in this tournament.
I was definitely around yesterday, around for a lot longer than I thought I would be, with 6 total games on the Academy stream. Some incredible matches back and forth all throughout. Immortals AoE and Ginger Turmeric, the big surprise, taking their wins yesterday. On the other stream, they ended a little early. As you can see, 2 O's across the board for 100 Thieves Next and Bogged. All the teams that won yesterday are now in the quote-unquote upper finals in their groups. This is like a double elimination group, GSL format, as it is called. But yeah, just those numbers on the screen don't do the games justice, man. Those were some ridiculous performances. So many base races, way more than I thought were possible.
Yeah, and for one of those, I don't really know what to say, so I'm just going to let the clip play, let it speak for itself. Tune on in.
Fully committing to the end. Animaker up in 20 seconds. That is the mid lane inhibitor turret dead. Ezra ultimate used into the base, Tesserux.
Oh, here we go. Calling for
minions!
Shock goes off to going after Shochi, able to get the knockback on Shochi. Shochi falls before getting the shockwave off, but the minions are taking down the base. The minions are doing work. Redbird have to do work faster. They're going after the Nexus towers, but the Nexus towers are healthy. Trevor doing
Anime Girl's doing it!
after the Nexus tower #1. It will fall. There's Anime Girl. He's
Anime
teleporting
Girl!
into the base. He is going for the back door. Structures are getting destroyed.
No way!
Some way! Immortals! AoE! Backdoor Redbird!
I can't believe what I just watched!
So that was our game 3 yesterday. That's how the 2-1 got on the board in favor of Immortals AoE. That was 50 HP away from the Nexus, a collegiate team almost taking down an LCS third team. And that's how we're starting off day 1, Zoo. I don't know how we top it going into today.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I'm just hoping to see some collegiate aggression. You know, maybe get some good games like that. You know, hopefully not a nail biter like that. I would like to see Maryville have a nice, strong, convincing game or match today. But you know, who could say no to a base race, right?
You know what? That's part of the fun of amateur, right? We like to celebrate the craziness that we get.
Absolutely.
Luckily, I didn't get any noise complaints. Otherwise, I would have had to explain to my neighbors why I shouted "Anime Girl" at the top of my lungs last night. So we'll see if it comes later, but it's all good for now.
All good for now. Congrats to Immortals AoE on their win. They are, of course, one series away from qualifying for the playoff stage, whereas ISU, 50 HP on the Nexus away from being in that same position, just wasn't able to get it in time. They'll be playing for their tournament lives as they still have a chance to make it through the groups. But guys, that was yesterday's series. We've got some good matches coming up today, some more collegiate teams in action, and these are the earliest slate of games that we have on this stream. Of course, if you are interested in seeing No Team versus Wildcard Aces, you can tune in to twitch.tv/Unified Live. I personally encourage the 2-mon in their scenario. So I'm also a big fan of that too. But we're going to be focusing on the game that we have in front of us today. Maryville University against Nameless Randoms. Zoo, I got to start with you. It's a team that you are familiar with, unlike any other person that we probably have on this broadcast for this tournament. Of course, you bringing Maryville National Championship to that program. What's it like now kind of watching this team throughout this tournament? What are your expectations going into today?
Well, the big thing for me is really just how quickly Maryville can accelerate the game. When you look at a team like Maryville, especially with a coach like Jensen Go, Jensen is really phenomenal at coaching 2-lane styles compared to, you know, 3-lane, which most people tend to play. You know, myself, I'm somebody else that also coaches, you know, in more of like an accelerated 2-lane manner. And with people like APA, Odd Orange, Shady, Azog, and Niles, there's really no better core to really play this kind of accelerated 2-lane style. So what I want to see out of Maryville is just like aggressive macro play, and I want them to make decisive decisions and not be afraid to like give up a couple quick kills here and there.
It's something that we have seen Maryville do throughout the OQs. I know they're for one performance, they had some pretty solid games throughout. But I also know that on the flip side, Smacks, Nameless Random, someone that we aren't that familiar with, but they really had to fight back just to even make it into this tournament.
Yeah, you ever been in that situation where you're getting into your promos from like gold to silver or something, or silver to gold the other way, and you lose the first 2 games, and you're like, all right, time to buckle down and reverse sweep. It's exactly what Nameless Randoms did in the Open Qualifier. They lost both their games on Monday, and you have to win 3 of the 5 to qualify, and they actually managed to do it on the last day, beating a lot of teams that were competitive in the last tournament, as namely UCI in their last match. They actually took them down, a team that was competitive in the first qualifier. So for Nameless Randoms, really big that they were able to do that. A lot of momentum coming out of that tournament. And for this team, I'm really looking out for their mid-jungle as well, to try to match the pressure of APA and Odd Orange, who've played together for quite some time. In 2020 as well in Supernova, they were a very competitive mid-jungle duo. For Detention, he's coming in with a really big champion pool, and that's been the player that's been looking the hottest on the Rift for these guys as well, from the OQ games.
Yeah, and Zoo, I know that you have this unique experience, not only having coached someone like Odd Orange, or helping start conversations with APA about joining Maryville, but also coaching against them in that 2020 season when they were on Supernova. So what are Nameless Randoms going to be facing down when it comes to going up against this Maryville squad, and especially this mid-jungle duo?
Well, so competing against APA in 2020, one of his weaknesses, I would say, was generally his laning and his micro, clicks, especially with champions like Syndra and stuff like that. But that's something that he's gotten so much better at, and I actually praise his laning quite highly. I think he's kind of growing into his own and becoming more of a complete player. So if you have somebody like that, really you're going to look for laning aggression and looking to be able to maximize your gains and be able to transfer that pressure into maybe top lane. But what you get with Odd Orange is you get that insurance factor. You get that person that's going to cover your lane when it's pushed out. It's going to help you set up advantageous TP situations. It's going to help you, get your deep vision that you want. And then in return, what APA is going to give Odd Orange is the ability to invade camp respawn timers, ability to be able to play off stacked waves in side lanes, They really complement each other quite well. And I think since I competed against them, I think they've kind of shored up their weaknesses quite well. And, they definitely still have their strengths. I just think they're a bit more complete than they were a few years ago. And, if they kind of just take that, they don't get too ahead of themselves today. They don't troll and take any too aggressive situations. I think that they should have full control. And, the 2v2 is the whole reason we reached out to APA when I was still with Maryville in the first place, is what's a better 2v2 to have,
Yeah, it's one that they almost made it to Scouting Grounds as that amateur team on Supernova. And hey, we're going to have to see what Maryville can do this year. Now, before I get more of your thoughts, we actually have some thoughts from the rest of our casters and crew that are joining us here for this second circuit qualifier for Proving Grounds. I do want to see what the rest of our casters think on the air, as we have gathered all their predictions, and we'll have to see if we have anyone going against Maryville this game. And wow, across the board, everyone is unanimous, shockingly.
Wait a second, they took me off of this. Where are my predictions?
Hey, they're later. They're later. We've got ours later. This is everyone else part of the show, so don't worry. But wow, I am all right. So we have no one in this first two series today, I should say, straying from the favorites. Now the first seed is playing in both of these groups. Maryville being the first seed of Group D, no team being the first seed of Group C on the other stream, of course. But no, I guess no one's giving any hope. Now, before we dive into what you guys think, I do want to fly a couple clips. We do have some highlights about how Maryville got here. And Zoo, I know that you were specifically talking about this mid-jungle duo. Yes, they play to win lane. Yes, they play to snowball that into other jungle camps. But what else are you going to expect from these guys in this series going up against Nameless Randoms?
Well, I'm expecting strong blind picks, particularly things like Syndra, which is on the screen right now, and Jace as well. I think some of the best champions that Maryville could be playing are Syndra, Ryze, Jace, and Lee Sin. And, I think it shows the team's ability to create strong advantages when they're able to utilize these strong blind picks and, still win their matchups, even when they're counterpicked, get the prio and all that stuff. And I think with the meta right now, honestly, I hate it. I think the meta is quite stale. I think the meta is very slow. And especially with things like Hullbreaker and Corki, Vigar, all that stuff in the meta, I think a lot of teams with lacking fundamentals are able to kind of buy time to get to the mid to late game, to where you can flip an Elder, you can flip a Baron, and then the death timers are long enough to where even if you didn't have map control the entire game, you're able to just kind of barrel down the middle of the map and take the Nexus. But Maryville has never really played like that. With me or without me, Jensen doesn't really play like that either. And I know for a fact none of these players want to play like that either. So, utilize strong blinds, play aggressive, play to end the game early, and don't give the opponent the ability to scale.
And that's something we have spent a lot of time talking about, this mid-jungle duo for Maryville. I think it's exciting given the fact that Maryville is also running 2 rosters for this tournament, so there isn't that flexibility now. But it is good to see APA on the main stage 24/7. And we haven't even talked about the veterans that really bookend this Maryville roster. One being Shady in the bot lane, but then Also, Smacks, Niles in the top lane. Always have to keep Captain America in mind.
Oh, I'm super excited that Niles is back here on Maryville as well. It just feels right, you know. After his time in Golden Guardians, I was really proud of him watching all those games. He, of course, did get 3rd place on Golden Guardians Academy at Proving Grounds just last split. And it's because of his sweet mechanics like we just saw right there, flashing and getting the golf swing underneath the turret here. This guy will just crush any lane that he is in. He's not afraid to go for these solo kills as well and just shut people entirely out from that lane. I think he and the entire top side work really well together. Odd Orange helping him out and get all of those kills as well. I'm sure we all remember those memes on Twitter of, oh man, we queued against Niles Odd Orange. I might as well just dodge. We might as well just FF. It's too
Annalise.
good. Yeah.
It has been fun to see them reunited, and this Maryville squad, I mean, they're looking very strong heading into this tournament. Smacks, I know that you said you think they're a top 2 team that we have in this tournament.
Yeah.
And I am curious, kind of to prod some thoughts about that, but also, we're 5 minutes out, and it's about time that we start throwing some more things on the line in terms of predictions. But before we dive into the predictions that we have for the 3 of us at the desk, we actually have some special guests that would like to give their predictions as well. So I'd like to introduce the stream to Pat Cat and Victor from Arcane.
All right, boys. I've got this one treat, and it's going to determine who wins this game. Pat, if you get it, Maryville's going to win. And Victor, if you get it, then the Maryville will lose, and it'll be nameless randoms. All right? Here we go. Here it comes. You ready? Here we go. Well, Victor, you didn't even try. I guess it's Maryville, 2-0.
I don't know what kind of augmentations Victor went through from Arcane, but it feels like the motivation just isn't quite there yet.
Yeah, I don't know what got into him right there. He's usually so energetic. He's a little kitten still, so I was really expecting him to put up a fight there, but no, Pat Cat got there. I did give Victor a treat afterwards, so for those of you who are wondering if Victor got a treat, he still did. So don't worry, my kittens are loved equally. I love them both. But yeah, Pat Cat thinks it's gonna be Maryville.
Well, Pat Cat thinks it's gonna be Maryville. Guys, what do you think? Zoo, I'm gonna start with you. Who do you have?
Well, so first off, I have a Maryville 2-0, but I think it's more important to talk about not necessarily what the result is, but how they get the result.
Mm-hmm.
When you're playing a heavily favored matchup like this, you never are trying to overthink about the enemy team. It's really just saying, all right, guys, let's come in, let's play our game, let's not get ahead of ourselves, and let's just use this as a test to kind of see where we're at right now. And, you know, just let's try to play our best game and see what happens. And when you straight up have the 2 best players in Collegiate, Shady and Niles, like they are number 1 and number 2 best players in Collegiate in any role, period. Shady is the truth. Fact. You know, it's really up to them to just control the game. And I think it'll be a pretty good 2-0. There definitely might be an int moment or two, but, you know, that's part of the charm.
It's part of the fun of amateur play here on the Academy stream. Smacks, are you aligned? You going somewhere else?
Yeah, I am aligned. Nobody's immune to the int, but I do think that Maryville's got this 2-0. Like you alluded to, I think they are a top 2 team in this tournament. Top 2, of course, because 100 Thieves Next is still in this tournament, and they are already beating the top tier Academy teams. So, like, we'll see about that matchup when we get to it. I think Maryville's definitely got this in the bag, and I would expect them to be very competitive throughout this entire tournament.
I would like to say, as the Academy representative, that Golden Guardians Academy might have needed the kick in the ass that 100 Thieves Next gave them, as they have been playing great after, you know, they dropped that last final. I was asked for my prediction as well. I've got a 2-0 for Maryville. I agree that the mid-jungle duo they have, it feels very strong in this tournament. But I do want to give a shout-out on Nameless Randoms to their jungler, Sajid. I think that if they have any chance of getting into this game, they've been playing some crazy top laners to give flexes for their jungler, and I think he's going to be the one hope that Nameless Randoms have diving into this matchup. So, something to keep our eyes out for. I know that we have spent a lot of time hero building, one of the best teams that we have in this tournament, or at least we think, but it's about time that we see if Maryville can live up to that name. So, to bring us through all the action, it's going to be Dia and Rudude taking you through these games.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the desk. I'm, of course, the Dia, aforementioned, and Rudude is by my side. I believe there we go. On this side. So, welcome to the caster desk as we prep up for the draft in just a few minutes. Rudude, the analyst desk have had plenty of time to give us their thoughts. What are yours?
Yeah, I think that they've hit on all of the important notes, that we're heavily looking at the mid-jungle duo to see how these two are going to be working, shaping up against one another. Obviously, Odd Orange plus APA is a pretty scary duo to try and go up against. But I'm not counting out Nameless randoms just yet. Obviously, they're coming into this a set of fresh faces, and I'm definitely going to be looking to them to make a bit of a show up, and we'll have to wait and see whether or not they can.
Certainly will. Now, I've been told that perhaps people can't hear me, so Rudude, I'm going to rely on you to bring the majority of this information forward. I'd like to hear a little bit about how you expect, perhaps, Maryville to start off in the draft. I think Zoo talked about some really strong blind picks that they can look to use, but what are those that you're looking for? They're particularly strong on this pack.
I think that then, okay, so Vhagar, first of all, I think is incredibly strong right now, just in general with Predator. You can just control mid-games, control objectives, control space so incredibly well, and I think that that's a champion that we didn't see too much from in the first qualifier to one that we should see a lot more of here in this second. I'm also looking toward Hecarim. I've got my own sort of seeping suspicions that Hecarim may well be sneaking his way back into the meta here and can facilitate fairly well this mid lane pick, and that duo in general, Vhagar plus Hecarim, in fact, even if you have an immobile mid lane that you're trying to put in the cage, you can shunt them into the stun using the Hecarim devastating charge. A really nice little synergy there that you can utilize with one another. I think that just in general, Syndra is always going to have a place in the meta. Ori as well, a champion that we're seeing a little bit more, and I know that the desk were talking a little bit off air about their proficiency and, or rather, their tendencies to like Rise or like Ori as an answer to Rise. So if we're seeing that, then these are some champions that we're throwing out there that could very easily come through.
Let's find out. Let's take a look as to what's hitting the ban table and the draft table first. Of course, Zeri on this patch, still extraordinarily powerful. No surprise to see her taken out. That Zoe, definitely a callback to how Nameless were playing during the OQs.
Exactly. Just get rid of Zeri, honestly. We're on the 12.4 patch now as opposed to 12.3, so there are some slight nerfs that have hit Zeri, mainly hitting her early game and a little bit of the utility that she has in those early stages, but overall, still a very strong late game champion and really can pop off in those team fights. We're going to be seeing Corki still taken away, so it's good to see teams not valuing that nerf too highly either. Obviously, the package timing's what got hit there, but now we get to see whether or not Maryville are really going to be hitting on those blind picks. We could well see the likes of a Jace come through B1. Niles is just too good at this champion for you to not be considering taking it away on that first pick. And Lee Sin as well. Gotta love that, however, it's one of Odd Orange's most proficient champions as well. There's a lot that Maryville have still got up for grabs here. The blue side power really speaking to them.
Yeah, even that first pick really just had me going through all the past games that I've seen of Maryville, right? You and I talked about his Nidalee previously, but the Lee Sin is really what he's known for, being able to abuse, especially weak points in the enemy's defense quite quickly on a highly mobile champion. I like where Nameless randoms are thinking of going, though. We've got a very strong blind pick on one side, and now they're thinking about how they can use that to advantage their bot side, because a lot of this game is going to be played top side, but if you can keep yourself with a strong bot side and insurance policy for later, then at least you've got a chance in these team fights that Zoo was talking about on the desk that tend to happen so late.
Exactly. It's that, okay, well, if all of the action's happening in the top lane, why don't we just make sure that our bot lane is at the very least going to be efficient later on? Jinx, there's a likely pairing that we're going to see here. Aphelios also works, but I myself am just more proficient or more adverse to picking this Jinx in this situation. Aphelios is something that you can take here. That's that blind pick Jace that we talked about from Maryville. Maybe expect to see something more catered toward the weak side for Azog, something like the Jhin, like the Ezreal, that can facilitate Shady's roams. He's very good at making these roam plays happen and getting himself out onto the map early on, even after one recall, making a play going forward, and particularly when you've already got a Jace locked on in, the fact that you can set up with an Ezreal, you are already building a fairly nice poke composition.
Oh. I can actually hear how happy Zoo is right now just watching the Syndra and the Jace come through, continuing to just blind these ridiculously strong champions, and especially for APA. We talked about the Syndra on the desk, and you are going to see why right here. This guy has an incredible amount of control on the champion. Viego picked up for Nameless Randoms to finish off their first round of picks, and I need a little bit of enlightenment here. What is the Viego bringing together on this composition? What is its role here when compared to Syndra Chase Lee Sin?
You know, it's going to be it looks like they're trying to double down. Viego, obviously an incredibly good skirmisher. So if we see Nameless Randoms take some heavy skirmishing on the top side, they're going to be trying to do dookie with Maryville University very early on. Get those fights in. So it's the name of a dance, okay? At least in my head, anyway.
Yeah. Sorry.
They're going to be trying to have some scraps in the top side of the map, dear, if that's more applicable to you. And get that fight down early. Now, obviously, moving into the second round of fans, there are some very different drafts that we've had so far. We've got complete top side for Maryville, and then the bot side plus jungle for Nameless Random. So you're expecting to see some fairly strong weak side picks taken away from Maryville, namely here the Ornn already on number 1, and then Nameless Randoms. Anything they don't want in the bot lane, they can get rid of. Leona, Nautilus could well be the next one on the board as well, just because it's really good roaming support that, once again, if Shady gets his hands on, it's going to be looking pretty good moving around Summoner's Rift with. Could also try and take away the Aphelios, Ezreal, Jhin, anything that will be down in that bot side that allows the roams to come through.
Yeah, especially if you're getting something that allows roams to happen and gets to hyperscale, because right now the late game insurance is what you have separating you from Maryville as Nameless Randoms. The more you can keep that in your advantage, the better. But it will be a challenge, especially as we go towards the later picks here, where they've got to lock in a top laner and a mid laner. With all of the data they already have, the counter pick should be effective, but let's not forget that, I mean, you're going up against Niles and APA right now. Like, it's not, counter picking is not the easiest thing. A Poppy, another great late game scaler, is definitely one that is meant to just keep Niles from popping off too much.
Oh yeah, it really is. You know, you can use the Steadfast Presence to interrupt to the skies from Jace. I just saw Xayah Rakan locked in. I'm very happy with this. Xayah as a champion and sort of fits that, I will say, the third pick that is very good when trying to be left on her own and can be sort of solo-sided. But then we've got the Rakan locked in as a pairing. We're probably not going to see a whole lot of... We may well see a lot of roams, to be fair, from Shady, but even if not, we can still see a very powerful 2 versus 2. Xayah Rakan touted for having the best level 1 of any bot lane. Trying to rival Jinx Thresh with that, it could be done, but obviously Jinx with those rockets does have a slight advantage in that range department versus the Xayah early doors. And as we get later into the game as well, get the Vex locked in on our R5 here, and a dive champion versus a Xayah, kind of the anti of what you want. Unfortunately, Xayah is very good at punishing dive just by using her ulti to pretty much mitigate anything you try and put down. I'm also expecting this to be the more critically strike Xayah oriented build. I believe on 12th we did get some nerfs coming through to the Blade Caller in the sense that it now scales really well with crit. So if you're picking up some hard auto attacking styles, that could be the way to go.
Yeah, this is something that I'm interested in, though, because you did mention the Vex as sort of relatively ineffective against the Xayah, at least, you know, being able to dive this backline. It does, however, fit with A, what is theoretically strong in the patch, and B, how Detention likes to play the game, because we had a lot of opportunity to just take a look at Nameless Randoms and what they were bringing into this into this tournament as a team that was relatively unknown before, and a big part of this is around Detention and the way that he sets his team up for success in the fights, and that is something that Vex can do, specifically using Doom and Gloom. You've seen her use the personal space, jump in and start team fights. And I think that, weirdly enough, when we're looking at a mid laner, Detention is the person who I am hoping can get plays started for Nameless Randoms that should advantage them against Maryville. Because if they're not starting with him, I don't know where they are.
Yeah, you have the option to use some flanks from Poppy, from Swordjed here, potential picks from Z-Score as well, but you're quite right that the easiest engage at the very least certainly looks to come from just a Vex chucking herself into the middle of the team fight, hitting a 5-man fear, and then Zonya'ing to try and buy that time. Of course, we sort of set up this story here of how both of our mid laners wanting to be played this one around, and I think that Detention utilizing his, or trying to utilize his more, we'll say, cerebral capabilities. You know, we touched on both these mid laners, and I think that coming into this series, we expected both APA and Detention to be setting up for the team in separate ways. Detentions, as you talked about, is quite heavily focused around being really strong in team fights, as allowing Pint to kind of go off with this Jinx now, and that's a good facilitator in that regard. He's got a lot of CC, he can be that follow-up damage as well on the Vex. Not quite as consistent in the DPS department, but can throw out really good burst in just a few seconds, you know, with just a few seconds of downtime every time out. So I'm excited to see what the Nameless randoms can do in this matchup, to see whether or not that topside skirmish is going to go in their favor, because this Poppy is kind of the difference maker between the two teams thus far. We've got fairly standard, I will say, across the board, except for the top lane where Jace versus Poppy, they're not quite the same champions, are they? They're going to be doing very different things in team fight, where I think that largely both teams are matched in other regards.
Yeah, absolutely certain. And I mean, going off that Poppy, right? She's a very threatening thing, especially for champions that want to be dashing in. There's one champion, notably, that doesn't want to be dashing in, I'd say, perhaps except for the Xayah. And I was thinking specifically of the Syndra here, because APA is this second half of the mid lane matchup that we had highlighted earlier, and in his own right, also a very cerebral player. And as you highlighted, in a very different way. A lot of this comes from him knowing how his champion interacts with not just his own team's win conditions, but with the enemies. And I sort of want to get an idea of what APA can do as the Syndra throughout the game to make this really inconvenient for Nameless randoms.
I think that it's going to come a large portion down to that synergy between himself and Odd Orange here. And I think that this lane is actually going to be a really good test for APA to see whether or not he can facilitate Odd Orange in that capacity, because we've touched on this 2 versus 2 fairly heavily and hoping to see that really come to blows. I think that the Syndra versus Vex, typically what you want from your mid laner when you're looking at it from a jungle perspective, is to get push, help you invade, get push, help you get vision. Not get push, set up for a gank. There are a couple of options that APA does have, and I think that particularly versus a Vex, who is a very strong wave clearing champion who can quite easily match Syndra in that department. Heavy trading earlier on, try and just feel out the tension to see whether or not he can take those early trades. Syndra just have just slightly better cooldowns earlier on, a little bit better trading levels in level 1 with Corrupting Potion as well. You can kind of go a bit aggressive with that and try and take these trades to force the tension a little bit lower and then control the lane from there. So we'll have to wait and see if he can do that to facilitate the roams with Orange, to facilitate these roams potentially up to the top side, because if there's one thing that we've seen from Maryville, it's that if they can get Niles ahead, Niles can carry here. This Jace as well that we talked about being just his bread and butter, took it on B2, completely blind, didn't care what they had to answer with. He was going to take this regardless. So if they're able to utilize some roams up to the top side early on, Poppy, those tanky resistances not going to be built up. So I think that some dives could very well be imminent.
Yeah, I am very scared for what is going to happen topside. And you know what? When I see this Poppy, I didn't think about it initially, but it does feel kind of like you want to be playing as little topside as possible as Nameless randoms, right? You remember when top laners would be going Relic Shield and just sort of dodging lane after level 4? I think if you could, you would absolutely do it here, but seeing as you can't, we're gonna have to see how this all plays out. We hit the rift, finally! Maryville University versus Nameless randoms. Game 1 starts right here, right now.
I know it's the extreme action out of the gate early on at the very least. Level 1s all seem fairly standard. I think that this is a good time to set up what we expect from the first few minutes of the game here. We have got obviously a fairly one-way or one-sided top side here with the Jace versus Poppy matchup to hopefully facilitate Niles getting a strong lead. He's even gone for the Conqueror, which is typically a less lane-oriented rune to allow him to become a real nuisance in those team fights and scale a little bit better. Even gone for Longsword 3 potions, which, whilst it's becoming the norm now even in bot lane, is still a slightly greedier opening because you don't get that extra health in the laning phase versus the Door and Shield where you do, and you get yourself toward that mythic early on. We do see Shady and Azog here, maybe just playing a little bit of vision on Pint down on the bot side, but all told, a 2 versus 2 at level 1. We talked about this for Xayah Rakan, particularly with Hail of Blades as well. A quick trade for Maryville is going to go very well for them if they can get that knock up.
Yeah, I was wondering how greedy Pint was going to get, right? We talked about the atomization, but just 2 or 3 steps a little further forward, and it would have really cost him. Well, it's going down, of course, but as level 1 trade starts, Pint already backing off, and play does get used. Health advantage secured for Maryville. It's a very small thing. Let's keep our eyes on how it adds up, because I imagine it will.
Yeah, very skirmish-oriented bot lane, honestly. With Xayah Rakan, whenever you're looking at it, you can definitely expect some action.
Again, just another knockup. Ignite actually thrown down. Score forced to flash, and Shady flashes after him. Score goes down. First blood goes over to Shady, but can Izog survive on the other side? Heal does get burned. Still level 1 on everyone involved. But Maryville back away, securing first blood before 2 minutes.
You don't beat Zyra level 1. It's just not a thing that you do with Jinx Thresh. Particularly, this Hail of Blades is coming up so huge for Azog. He's able to just layer a ton of damage down really quickly. Level 1 W gives attack speed to both of the Lovers duo there. It is so hard to outduel them, and Lethal Tempo is not a laning rune. It takes a long time to stack up, and it gets to the late game stage, we're loving life. Unfortunately, we were still level 1 in that fight, and Nameless Randoms, they take a fight that they can't win. A beautiful engage from Shady to start it all off, a slightly late flay from Z-Score, and overall a good start to the game for Maryville's bot side, where we were expecting it to maybe be a little bit quiet. Wasn't our leading focus of this match, but we're quite happy to see any form of action early on. Any leads that can be built up for Maryville, going to go very well for them.
Yeah, I don't think it was anyone's point of focus, but sort of, as Zoo pointed out, pre-game, so much of this has to do with Maryville trying to play their cleanest game, and one where they give up the least. A lot of that is going to come through, well, being a little bit aggressive in the bot side, and it doesn't seem like, at least in this instance, Nameless Randoms were quite up to the challenge. However, you live and you learn. You haven't actually backed yet as Maryville, and Pint hasn't left the lane, so skirmishes are still a possibility that are, I'll say, relatively even until a few minutes from now.
They are. Now look at Odd Orange. Pings his way into the mid lane, and with this wave pushing in, Detention in a bit of trouble. Scatter for APA up, I assume, ready to go. So we need to wait and see.
Walked a little far forward, does actually get stunned right there. Q connects, but Odd Orange not going to go into the tower. You got what you came for, right? The summoner advantage for Odd Orange, and Sajed can't actually engage this right now because, well, he knows as well as we do that Shady is right there.
And this has just been a really good laning phase by APA. He forces the first 3 waves under the turret. On the bounce out, calls Odd Orange to come for the gank. They burn Flash. Now the wave is frozen. And you can see they've called 2 members from Nameless Randoms to come forward and push this wave in. Not only is this going to distract from Sorjed and Z-Score being able to lane effectively or get their jungles cleared out, it also shares a lot of the experience. Sharing XP 3 ways early on is going to give APA a nice advantage in that regard as well. So nice opening up by APA just through pure laning out sort of manipulation of the wave. Puts himself in a position now where he's going to be out in front. The CS advantage there as well. But Niles?
Must have known this was coming, though. We're going to be able to back off here. A very nice dodge on the stun as well. Should mean that Niles gets away. Flash actually invested, and does not seem like Nameless Randoms are giving up. Flashing on top of him, so Jed does get the stun. Koic can't involve himself just yet, though, and there's just not enough damage. I am left in pain, in shambles, as Niles manages to walk away.
A little bit greedy, honestly, for him to go walking into that brush with the Viego Shroud down there, but either way, burns the Flash, and now Detention, no Flash, should just be dead here.
Now there are 3 people in the mid lane, and this time Detention, of course, like you said, no Flash, shouldn't be able to survive. Second part of the queue does connect. Odd Orange gonna pick this kill up, you can only imagine, but APA right at the tail end of the scout of the week picks it up, and this is the APA we were talking about getting into the day. The one that freezes his wave against the tower, the one that calls 3 people up, and the one that can set up for his jungler and support to make it clean and easy kills. 2 kills so far going over to Maryville, and I gotta be honest, in both of them, it doesn't look like Nameless Randoms could have done anything.
No, Pint down on that bot side was so close to getting the trade back in the level 1, but even in this mid lane, with no Flash, Detention has absolutely no answer. Personal space was used at a really good time, but just not quite enough to keep him alive. And just a really good callback from Maryville. We've recognised that there's an immobile mid laner who has no Flash. We have a Syndra to set up Scatter, and we've got a roam angle from Rakan. Let's go there, let's find the kill, and Odd Orange as well. Waste no time making his presence felt, even steals away a couple of Raptors on his own count to get that lead even further ahead. Now Maryville, with this open up to the early game that's looking pretty good, scaling themselves up into the late game a little bit earlier. And this composition as well, no slouch when it comes to the late game. They aren't going to have the hard-hitting DPS of a crit strike AD carry. It is still the lethality style of Xayah, which is more focused.
Oh no, tragedy happening in the bot lane as well. Shadow Surge not connecting onto Azog. Another play that just by one Chimo's worth of distance doesn't work out. But in the top side, Maryville is setting their own up, right? Koic, he knows he's dead. Niles has done the work, and now it's time for Maryville to come and collect the kill. APA picks himself up the second one of the game.
Yeah, there we go. We'll set it in Champ Select that they can set up for a dive top lane incredibly easily, and when APA realizes that the Vex has gone bot lane, they just have a triangle.
Another knock-up landing bot side as well. This could be a little bit of deja vu from level 1, but it's even easier for Maryville this time. They do end up collecting the kill. Score goes down once more. Pint still holding it down. Does have Rocket available, but Shady knows what's up, and so does the rest of Nameless. Randoms, Sajed and Detention walking down here. This should be at least one easy kill for them. Personal space does get used for a little bit of a fear. Shady goes down. Sajed does get the little bit of healing there. The resets as the Viego. 2 kills collected for Nameless. Randoms, a big strike back at Maryville.
And very necessary as well. They were bleeding out across the map, not having any plays made successfully. Really important to see them pick up that kill down on the bot side and now have a slight window of an advantage. You can see that down in that bot side, the CS had been going very heavily in favor of Nameless Randoms. Despite the couple of roams from Z-Score up to the mid lane, Shady's roams also have left Azog a little bit out on his own. He hasn't been able to find the gold quite as easily here. Pint picking up that kill, a plate as well, and now that dragon, which is going to help them out a little bit in the damage department. A little bit now, a lot more later on when those items start to come through. Nameless Randoms are starting to generate themselves a win condition, and this is what we were hoping to see from them. And I think that this is exactly what their entire composition is built around here. We've got a tank in the top lane, we've got Detention, running interference from the mid lane, and then resets from Sorjed, Pint on a hyperscaler into the late game. This is what Nameless Randoms look to in terms of an early game success. Obviously, they would have liked for their solo laners not to have been killed by 3-man dives every time, or once each yet, but this is still a good look for them and a good way to bounce back into the match.
Yeah, with Pint accelerated right now, I don't think you can take your foot off the gas just yet, however. Azog and Shady do still need to push up, still do need to put themselves in a dangerous position, and I'd like to see Sajed pay a little bit more attention down here once again, see if we can get Detention to visit the southern end of the rift once more, because as we called out and as we just saw minutes ago, he is such a big part of the setup for this team, and it's what they're going to need in order to continue getting Pint accelerated, because just the one kill is not enough to win the game.
No, not by any means. Now we can see Sorjed once again hovering back down toward this bot side. You can see that the wave from Nameless Randoms' bot lane has been put in a pretty good position if they could find a gank angle on this timing.
Charm, knock up, no lantern coming through just yet. Pint already sub 100 HP, forced to flash, and it's Shady and Azog against the world. Everybody from Nameless Randoms do collect it downstairs, and I'm glad to see it as well. It's what we called for, it's what they need. Nameless Randoms got this going.
I was just about to say, if they can find a gank on this timing, that'd be so good for Pint, because they're going to be able to deny another wave to Azog. They're going to get this turret down on the bot side, or at least a couple plates down on the bot side. It looks like Maryville are going to get this turret up in the top lane, which has been largely funneled into Niles there, plus 610. And Baldy's solo local gold, and then the shared plates off the last two between himself and Odd Orange. So there's a very big discrepancy right now between where the teams are focusing. You've got top side versus bot side. The age-old it's coming back. Koic, you've done it once, but can you do it again? Now there's more support, though. We are going to see Sorjed coming from base. We've got Z-Score running his way up as well. 4v4 on the top
bit
side.
of cheese. Detention's not going to get to play the game. Personal space buys him a little bit of time. He actually manages to get away, but the Ignite taking him down just in time. Shady connects with the Summoner spell. However, like you talked about, Niles has gone down, and the rest of his team get a little bit of revenge for this. Sajed going to have to flash underneath the tower. Second tower does importantly stay alive through all of this, and Maryville are forced to back off. Flash from Z-Score actually connects with the hook, and the rocket connects from downtown as well. Another kill going over, and his Viego resets again and again. It's Pint that's starting to get involved, gets excited, and while Shady may be able to make it away, as I believe he will, Jed is hunting him down. There we go. Q connects. This guy's got everything in the Heartbreaker, the auto to steal the deal.
Oh my word, Sorjed is massive. 5-0-2 on a Viego. This is every AD carry's nightmare. This is every team's nightmare if you're looking at this from the Maryville perspective. This is how they took Niles down up in the top lane. Not quite able to take the duel up against the twosome on the top side. And from there, it did leverage into a lot of kills going over to the jungler. Now, you look at Z-Score, and with a 0-3-2 record, or 0-3-2 score, maybe thinking that, hey, you know, not the greatest game, but we have to give him, I will say, 90% of the credit for re-engaging on that top side. Maryville looked to be out, but the flash hook reignited the passion of that top side fight, gave them all of the goal, all of the opportunity to get back into that fight, and really set up for this Viego to be five kills into this game. We're looking across where Nameless Random's gold are, and it is perfectly distributed. We've got 5 kills on a jungler, 2 kills on our AD carry. We've got a mid laner who, granted, not had the greatest laning phase, not had the greatest time in the early game so far, but still has utility regardless. So I'm looking at this perfectly from the Nameless Randoms to set themselves up once again to get to that late game and potentially be able to take these team fights. Their composition is going to be better in that scaling department. They've got a more generic 5 versus 5 team fight that will win out if they can take it cohesively up against NU. But it's when we get into these more scrappy, more skirmish-oriented fights where Maryville may well be able to use the pick style of Syndra and the pick of Jace's long-range poke to set themselves up for a good positional team fight.
That's got to be the thing they're looking at now. Syndra still ever setting herself up for success in this mid lane. APA doing so well so far, and the gold at the bottom of your screen tells a whole lot of that story. 2,000 gold is the advantage, the difference between he and Detention, and even looking right now, topside control starting to go the way of Maryville as APA converts again and again. Odd Orange picking up a kill onto Koek, who stepped a little bit too far forward into his jungle, and by a little too far forward, I think I mean at all.
Out of his turret range, and unfortunately that's it. But they are going to get a Drake down on the bot side. Nameless Randoms, of course, working their way towards a late game win condition here with these 2 Drakes already secured. Soul of Choice this time is currently undetermined. We'll have to wait and see. There we go, the Hex Take. Okay, so that's a really good soul to get as well. Obviously, Niles is collecting gold on this top side. But if Nameless Randoms can keep on collecting those dragons, in about 10 minutes' time, they're going to have a very big team fight buff. There's a Detention. I think this is probably good.
It's just over. You see those 3 people appear on your screen, and you can kind of take your hands off your keyboard, right? There's not a lot you can do when you're in the side lane. Pick goes their way. However, we talked about the Hex Tech, and I mean, we do have to talk about the other area in which Nameless Randoms are winning the dragons very clearly.
And with those 2, well, the 2 that they've already gotten thus far, a little bit of extra movement speed, a little bit of extra damage as well. You can't underestimate those buffs going into the later stages of the game. The percentages obviously working as more items come through, particularly for that Infernal Soul, or that Infernal Dragon, excuse me. Now Maryville, they've had a strong topside pretty much throughout the entire game. They're using that once again to collect themselves a Rift Herald, absolutely no surprises there. Nameless Randoms, they're not without their own set of team fights here. They can really look to find them around, I assume, what is going to be that 3rd dragon. And that's when we're going to be looking to Detention to really showcase himself here, because he's had this rough early game, but he's still going to be playing the Vex. He's still going to be what could be a very large source of engage. I wouldn't even mind him finishing off this Everfrost, opting into a stopwatch early doors and just going for that Zhonya second, to be that engage power, to just be the one that starts the fights for Nameless Randoms, and then letting Swordjed, letting Pint pop off with the damage and be the ones to carry it in that department.
It would be a really good way to set up the team for success, exactly what Detention is known for. Does get a nice bit of damage onto APA as well, I might add, so not looking too bad on the
3 more people from Maryville.
But holy moly, just never stops down here. The Shadow Surge again does go wide. Detention again looks like he's going to go down. And underneath the tower, Shady's the one that makes sure it happens, constantly making these plays around the map. And it's a good thing too, because Maryville, they're feeling the aggressiveness this time around. Shady is a big part of why that's been able to happen.
8 out of 9 kill participation. Obviously, Shady here being everywhere on Summoner's Rift. We talked about his roaming capabilities from the get-go, and we haven't been let down so far. And with whenever you see 4 people on one side of the map, your typical response is, well, what's happening elsewhere? And unfortunately for Nameless Randoms, it was a perfect timing from Maryville because Pint had just taken a reset. Now, Swordjed, Swordred, he's going to be absolutely fine. But yeah, we saw Pint, he'd just taken a reset, went back to base, picked up the components here of a rapid fire cannon, so an incredibly safe build path as well for this Jinx. And then Koic on the top side was just getting scraps of gold to get himself somewhere near relevancy in this game, because he's been so starved out for the duration of this match, up against Niles' Jace, up against 3-man dive after 4-man dive after 3-man gank. He's not had the best of times thus far, and the solo laners for Nameless Randoms are continuing to get bullied and need to try and turn that one around as we get a little bit later into this game, because those early picks are okay for the objective focus, but as we get later into the game, you're going to lose more and more objectives by getting picked off. The gold in the early stage is obviously very nice for Maryville, so they're going to be quite happy with just taking those kills anyway.
And they are keeping the objectives in mind as well. Shady and Odd Orange on that duo mission does say a lot about how they're setting up for the Vision. And Gale Force forced out. Shady's still thinking about committing there. Doesn't quite get the engage, but there's a lot of pressure on Nameless Randoms, and that really does tell a very complete story. The small interaction around setting up Vision in the jungle, forcing out some, well, if not summoners, item actives in the mid lane. Just starting to whittle away at the resources that Nameless Randoms have available to them when approaching this all-critical dragon.
Yeah, and it's up in now just under a minute here. And I want to see whether or not that Rakan Flash proves fatal. Now, Maryville are forcing in on this boss side once again. Rift Herald used with 4 members nearby. They're going to be able to take this turret easily. And they're going to leverage this into complete vision of the bot side.
Sajid cannot step up, cannot be caught out here, although he does want to take a fight extremely strong on the Viego. It's Koic that has to be in the front lines, and that proves a little bit too much for him for now. Z-Score getting engaged on the other side as Niles gets deleted by the squad of Nameless Randoms. Everybody else managing to survive so far. Detention taking to the front lines, buying plenty of space and time for Sajid to step up once again. Numbers advantage going into this next dragon, at least so far. In Maryville, they have to back out.
About 30 seconds, 20 seconds on that Drake. No time for Niles. He will be able to TP in to the river, to wherever he so desires. There are plenty of flank wards down for him to go to. But the Drake, in fact, already up. They can get this, but can Nameless Randoms get away with this without getting a fight?
Shady's trying to get into the pit. Odd Orange now seeing his angle, does land the Q, but does not steal the dragon. Drake goes over to Nameless Randoms, and now their fight. Sajed unable to get out over the wall just yet. Running from the squad of Maryville. Use the Heartbreaker defensively, but Niles is on the chase. He and Shady want to take this fight. The charm comes in. Shady hasn't gotten anything just yet. Instead gets stunned into the wall. Forced to jump over it. 100 health left on him. With APA down, Maryville just cannot manage to close the deal on Nameless Randoms.
Z-Score, once again, he comes up big with the Thresh. He hooks APA on the side of the fight, stops him from being able to leather damage into one target, and Nameless Randoms come away with the win. They're now on Soul Point. They just won 2 consecutive skirmishes back-to-back. They are looking very competent in this game. So far, down what is currently 3,000 gold, but still making these plays, making these picks. They are playing these skirmishes incredibly well, and you can see that in the 5 versus 5 team fights, Maryville aren't completely sort of joined up with one another. They're finding it incredibly hard to find these engages. The Poppy front line from Koic makes Shady's job so difficult, makes Niles' job so difficult to get in and just kill one person, that this Poppy, even though has been starved out the duration of this game, she's got an insane amount of value by simply existing with the squad.
Yeah, it is really impressive to watch the way that Nameless Randoms have come together, right? And it isn't just around one person. We're highlighting Koic, Detention, Sajed, such a big part of the way they've been winning these team fights, and even Pint and Z-Score have been sort of shoe-man armying it off to the side. The very odd skirmish where Niles got picked off just to start this snowball into Dragon was in large part due to this bot lane's ability to survive on their own. Maryville strongest together, strongest when they can pull the map apart, but when Nameless Randoms know where you're going to be, proving increasingly difficult. Maryville trying to force the issue topside does result in them sort of grouping up and not knowing what to do.
Just looking for a little bit of an overextension, and for now, when we've got a few minutes on the next dragon spawn, attention tends to turn towards the Baron right now. Nameless Random's still not feeling confident enough to step out onto the map and try and claim a lot of vision. You can see that the Maryville jungle is completely dark. There's nothing particularly in there that they are able to witness, to scout out per se, but but Nameless Random's using a lot of defensive vision to make sure that roaming into the jungle, they aren't going to get caught, they aren't going to get killed, because for the Random squad right now, if they can get this soul, that puts them in a very, very good position. We don't need to tell you how strong Hextech soul can be. You get a static shiv that slows. That's just the dream, essentially, for any sort of team fight dominance. So they're going to be looking to push their way down into the bot side of the map and make sure they can collect pretty much as much gold as possible in the meantime. If they can get Pint to Infinity Edge before that next Drake, that's the dream, honestly. That's what they want, to just say, we can hands down win this team fight.
Exactly. Team fights ever the focus as we get a little later. Z-Score does connect onto Niles, though. One starts instantly. Z-Score getting blown up, though, for the counter engage by Shady. Changes everything. Maryville, in very good form, managed to maintain control over the jungle of Nameless Randoms, setting themselves up for success.
Just a little too far there for all of Z-Score's incredible hooks thus far. Taking that one was a step too far for the Nameless Randoms. Good to see that the rest of the team don't commit on that, and very good to see Maryville recognizing the over-aggression from Z-Score, picking up that kill and now completely dominating the bot side vision of the map. You can see Maryville, they've established and they've recognized that they know where this game's going to be played around for the next few minutes. They say, hey, you know what, you want to get this Drake so badly, we are going to stop you. Now, Nameless Randoms, they have an option to go up toward that Baron, and they have an option to say, if you're focusing so heavily around that dragon, hey, what if we just take a Baron instead? This one Hextech dragon isn't going to win you the game. It would do wonders for us, but we're not pressured to go down there, so they may well go for a trade, but those situations can be pretty difficult to edge out, particularly when you are down in gold. And you see Maryville, they're already set up. We've got about a little less than a minute now on that dragon. And with Jace, with Xayah as well, weirdly enough, the poke that can come through actually going to be fairly substantial if Maryville can make it stick. Now is when we need to see Nameless Randoms find that engage. We've got a stopwatch on 3 members of them. The team fight should be their favoured if they can find that beautiful engage, but it's all on detention, all on Swordjed as well in these skirmishes. Z-Score, can he find an engage? But you can see the poke is just too much. Drake is up in 15 seconds, and there's no way Nameless Randoms can get into this bot side.
Oh, they want to go with option B. Pint already so low, though. Maryville may just take 2 for the price of 1. If Baron is being taken away, they're already getting the dragon, and Nameless Randoms are sort of stuck without access to their mid lane. Can't do anything. Well, the Poppy desperately tries to engage. Koic doesn't have that work out for him, but detention finds Niles. The rocket finds him again,
That's
and
it.
somehow Nameless Randoms with detention managed to just catch out Maryville in the weirdest of ways.
Yeah, and now is when the Baron is a threat, dear. There are 2 members of Maryville University that aren't up. We've got TP on Koic, TP on detention. If they want to reset and get gold spent, get that health pool back up, they are at exactly that liberty to do so. APA is going to base TPs to the mid turret. Shady, Odd Orange, and APA. Can they stop this Baron? About half HP on it right now. Or a Nameless Random's going to be able to find that engage and find more.
Oh my lord, already the stun coming in onto Z-Score does force him to use the lock
Nice
and
Orange,
the
he
box.
can steal.
Odd Orange is looking for this. Koic can stop him, but detention does get stunned up, finds the fear in return. No deaths just yet. Odd Orange unable to get into the pit, hops over the wall with the safeguard, manages to steal the Baron. How does he do it? Maryville managed to take away the one thing that could have put Nameless Randoms in the driver's seat, but Nameless Randoms aren't done yet. Cornered inside the pit, Rocket connect, and forward they go. APA going golden just in the nick of time, and Maryville continue to do the impossible.
They take everything away from Nameless Randoms. They were in search of the Baron, in search of the fight, and they got nothing. Absolutely devastating by Maryville to collect absolutely everything on the board. Look at the positioning from Koic here. It is absolutely crucial for this Poppy to try and stop Odd Orange from getting into the pit. But look, he set up a ward on the other side of the wall to get himself in. Even misses the Sonic Wave on a Baron to get in. Instead, Flash immediately steals it with the smite. And a scatter from APA to set it up as well. And then Nameless Randoms, they're thinking, well, there's only one way out here. We have to try and fight our way through to take as many Barons off as possible. Pint here with the Flash Gale Force forward. Perfectly timed stopwatch from APA to prevent himself from going down, to keep another Baron on the team. And I think that 4, if not 5 members have got that in their back pocket. Now pushing through mid and bot lane to just take this game.
It is incredible that we've managed to see this happen. Game's not over just yet, but Maryville are making it look like it's going to be soon, and it is off the back of the very same duo that we highlighted at the start of the game. Odd Orange and APA with 2 miracle plays put their squad in the driver's seat. And Maryville now have taken 2 inhibitor towers, 1 inhibitor down already, and they could certainly look for a second. The risk, of course, that another team fight could rear its ugly head, and Nameless Randoms are praying that they get a shot at re-entering this.
Infinity is completed for Python. He still has stopwatch. No flash, though, so this Jinx a little bit susceptible to going down. But you would like to think that they can still try and take a team fight with a 3-item Jinx. Look at APA trying to play Vision on the backside of the base, but there's a ward that spots him out. No second inhib going to be collected. Maryville, they did their job. They've broken open the base with this Baron, even taken an inhibitor. That's going to be 5 minutes of pressure, pushing down in the bot side of Summoner's Rift. So Maryville, for now, happy and content with that lead. They're going to go back to trying to force in a second lane as well. Try and utilize this top mid pressure and maybe try and get 2 for the price of 1.
It's all about that multi-wave press, right? You're trying to get the waves to crash at the same time so that Nameless Randoms cannot commit to just one thing, because it is going to be incredibly difficult to pick off Niles if he is trying to push up to the tower, but I don't know what they're doing now. Now, Nameless Randoms have made a critical misstep, committing way too many people into the mid lane, and Kovac can't defend this on his own. Yet another inhibitor tower falls, and the team fight cannot begin because the tower is already gone by the time Nameless Randoms get there. Now it's Maryville thinking about starting one off. The stuns come in, and they're playing this one still ever safely. Baron has now expired, and Maryville's push should, for all intents and purposes, be over. It doesn't seem like they want to give it up.
They've done the hard part now. They've taken the turrets, and now they're just going to be stepping up into a 5 versus 5, using their pressure to do so. Koic gets a massive chunk taken. He's on 10% HP at this point. Hook hits, but there's nothing more. The inhibitor, the target for Maryville, and just a couple more autos. One more from Azog does it. They get top. They're going to get mid as well by proxy. And Nameless Randoms, they've given all 3 inhibitors now. They're base in tatters.
This triple inhib play is masterful by Maryville, and it's exactly what they needed to really put them in a driver's seat that is very difficult to wrestle away. I will say, nigh on impossible. Maryville gets to back away with an insane gold lead made out of almost nothing until this point, and get their second Hextech Dragon on the way out. Baron timing could not be more perfect for them.
No, and Hextech Drakes as well. Honestly, one of the best Drakes just from their buff to be given, particularly for Azog here. Gets extra attack speed, extra damage up against higher health targets. He's going to love both of those for taking down Koic, because there's not really a dedicated tank killer necessarily for Maryville, more so just an abundance of damage that they can deal from range, because Koic currently sat on 1 item and several goodies, unfortunately, right? He's got sort of three 1,000 gold roughly items that he's built, none into a full item just yet. Where you look at Niles, you look at APA, they've got 4, 3.5 respective completed items. So even if this Poppy tries to step up, she's just getting killed before she can even find an angle to be a frontline. This is not a frontline that is doing anything for you. Unfortunately, for the Nameless Randoms, your eyes have to be on Swordjet, have to be.
Oh my god.
On detention.
Detention almost can't play the game. Koic does manage to save him.
That's APA flash though. That's Syndra flash.
It is. Oh lord.
No.
Not sure how much APA needs it anymore. Azog does go for the finishing play. Doesn't find it, however, instead forcing out 2 stopwatches. Nameless Randoms do lose a single member. Koic is down, and his detention goes on the re-engage. No one is with him. The man who sets up his team time and time again leaves them behind, and it is all that he could do. It is all that anyone could do, because up against Maryville, the game looks like it will finally be concluding. Nameless Randoms have very few options. The flash forward from Sajed does secure a kill, but the Nexus goes down, and Maryville take game 1.
Oh my dear, it was close until it wasn't, and we all know when it became not close. That Baron fight where Odd Orange steals it, Nameless Randoms get sweeped, and then 5 members of Maryville go forth with the Baron. The early game as well looked really good for Maryville. They had those key pieces in place, a couple of dives on the top lane, 1 or 2 versus 2 kills down on the bot side, calling for the mid lane with no flash to get killed on repeat. There were several instances where Maryville just displayed an understanding of what they could accomplish and were very proactive trying to make those plays. Nameless randoms weren't without their own semblances of success. They had several skirmishes in the mid game, which brought them back to a point where they could have taken the Baron, where they were in a position to start it up and try and put themselves back fully into the game. But unfortunately, one misstep, one missed smite cost them the game and cost them what is potentially here a chance into the upper bracket. They've still got another chance to take a game away from Maryville. But for game number 1, at least, it's MU starting off strong.
Yeah, I'm very curious, especially given the way that our analyst desk prefaced this, as to how they ended up feeling about it as well, because a big part of this first game was, well, this should be a squad that Maryville should take down easily, so they should be playing their most perfect game possible. But to find out whether they actually did, to see what our AD thought about it, let's find out from them.
Congrats to Maryville on the Game 1 win. I'm going to be joined by Sam Smacks Hyde and Tanner Zoo Deegan to break everything down from that game. And guys, it was a bit of a back and forth Game 1. Maryville, it felt like they were the ones that were kind of initiating the plays, but there were a couple instances where Nameless Randoms had some nice punishes when they overextended.
Yeah, the Nameless Randoms had some really aggressive plays in the mid game where, and the late game as well, where they realized that they were behind and they knew there was really only one way to actually finish anyone off and try to fight back. Because as you can see from this draft, they've got a composition that's very built around getting resets. These 3 in the middle of their screen right here, Viego, Vex, Jinx, all of them really want to kill one person at a time and refuel, recharge, and move forward. And I think when they are playing that aggressively with those 3 champions, it can work pretty well. And you saw that in a lot of the skirmishes.
It was interesting to watch both of these teams go back and forth. Zoo, I know that you were talking a lot about how, while the kills were close on the scoreboard, it still really felt like a game that Maryville had in control. Do you want to kind of go into that, like how they are playing out these sides and, why Maryville was always the one that were making the first moves in that game?
Of course. So I think kills are probably one of the worst metrics to look to see if a game's close or not, because you can definitively give kills while you have complete map control, and then those kills don't actually change the map state. If the death timers are too short, the enemy team doesn't have the ability, and some teams just don't identify that they need to push out their side waves. So while you saw Nameless Randoms making a lot of good proactive, aggressive plays together, they weren't really ever changing the map state. Sides were perma pushed out, and this is just a direct result of not only Niles having a thorough understanding of side laning, but also Jensen being one of the few coaches that's able to actually, teach people how to effectively play around sides. You saw later in the game, they went into a 1-0-4 to attack sides. Now, personally, I don't like bringing the 80 carry that far. I would have stuck with the 1-1-3. But you see, even though they were making mistakes, they were in complete control of the game. And, it's basically what we came to expect. Kills are close, but the map was never even once out of Maryville's favor.
Yeah, and we started to see that as the game went on, as Maryville mostly initiating plays on the other side of the map. But hey, to be fair, Nameless Randoms, they put up a pretty good fight in some of those team fights and did punish Maryville for overextending with some of those plays. So credit where credit is due. I know that we do have a couple replays, though, highlighting specifically what we were talking about early in the game. I know we put a big emphasis on APA and Odd Orange being this explosive mid-jungle duo. They're going to use priority to blow up the map. Smacks, here's how they were able to do it first time around.
Yeah, we got a good example of all of that right away. Firstly, we see the Nameless Randoms are attempting a play on the bottom lane, and while that ultimate was really close, it ended up whiffing, and it showed Maryville exactly where Vex was. So you can see they all start to stack up on this top lane, landing a really excellent dive, very well executed too. And this is exactly what we were talking about. They use that pressure, use that knowledge around the rift, and go and make plays. Now you're probably wondering, why is the play still going? Well, it's because there actually is a retaliation by Nameless Randoms where they do continue this play even after their support gets killed in this bottom lane, and Azog and Shady just don't end up respecting that same play that their entire team just made without them. The double down for Nameless Randoms is something that I actually do really respect. This is that style of aggression that I was highlighting before that I thought was really cool.
If you're going to play the reset comp, you got to try and dig around for those resets. So it was an instance where Nameless Randoms, I know things were looking grim, but the fact that we're able to turn that play around to the bot lane helped. I know there was another instance where Maryville were taking the top inner turret. They also turned that around, and that's where we saw Sajed get really, really fed on the Viego. I believe sitting 5-0-2 at like before plates fell. Almost a problem for Maryville, but still something they were able to navigate, given how they were able to control the map.
Really like the Viego from him. It's not the reset champions that I think I have a problem with. I think the real thing that I've seen a lot of teams do with these champions is just they don't pick burst with it. Because if you're gonna get a Jinx excited, if you're gonna get all these Viego resets, Vex resets, you need to have more damage to make sure you actually kill a target before. So I think if they're going to go with that same strategy in the draft in the future, just keep that in mind, because we did see some really good performances from all three of those players in those team fights.
Yeah, I think specifically, you know, highlighting a couple positives of the Nameless Randoms. Zoo, we were talking a lot about how Pint actually had a really nice game, a surprise performer. Something I always love about Amateur is that, you know, even some of the teams we have that are sitting lower in groups, we always are able to get surprised by a couple players, and Pint's definitely something that had a nice game one.
Yeah, absolutely. I really, really like when players are in disadvantageous situations. They really just play aggressive instead of like kind of bleeding out slowly. And, you know, for me, at least looking at amateur and collegiate players, that's one of the big things that I do look for is, you know, when your kind of back is against the wall, do you keep trying to back up, or do you just throw everything at them and see what happens, you know? And, you know, especially at the Baron fight towards the end where he flash Gale Forces in, you know, the chances of you winning the game at that point are extremely low, but you're giving yourself at least a slightly better chance to be able to make a play. And, you know, that's something that I see in a lot of other higher quality, or not quality ADs, but more well-known ADs, people like Raheen and Value in the past and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed that. But I think the big thing from the replay that we see here is Maryville had a fantastic setup around that fourth Drake. However, they were just trying to accomplish two things at once. You saw that they had amazing zone control around the right side river brush, and then they translated that into mid lane control. Nameless Randoms making a mistake trying to go into the Baron River instead of controlling the mid wave. But the problem there is that APA is kind of trying to do like too many things at once. He, instead of trying to control the choke with Rakan Jace, he's trying to hit the turret. And what you want there is you're not necessarily looking for the tier 2. You're looking to keep them out of mid lane as long as possible. And the longer you, or the more you split like that, the more of the opening that you get. And that's exactly what Nameless Randoms took.
Yeah, credit to them for finding that engage. It was really a common theme, is that we saw Nameless Randoms be able to fight back, be able to punish some of the overextensions of Maryville, but we never really saw them dictating the pace of the game, dictating the plays that they're. And that's something that we are looking out for in game.
More Nameless Randoms. I really like the agency. I like the teamfight mechanics, honestly. You can tell that these players did fight tooth and nail to get to this point, and it's a lot because of those mechanics in the middle of those fights. I think that, like you said, Cubby, if they can get that agency early on and they can start making the proactive plays rather than the reactive ones, then that's going to look a lot better for them. Moving forward, we'll see what side of the draft they want to be on as well. I don't know if they've picked quite yet, but maybe start to get one of these big power picks right away. Looks like they're on red, so they're sticking with it, going for the counter pick style.
Counter pick, something that can be useful against Niles. I know that blind Jace, they were able to protect it with a couple of blind, or taking away some of the responses that they thought that Nameless Randoms would have. That pipe ended up being put pretty far behind. That is something we expect against a team with Niles when he has the Jace, but not something that ended up being helpful for Nameless Randoms, as those empowered shock blasts were hitting like trucks in the later stage of the game.
Poke is big.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, speaking on draft a little bit, I'm a little bit disappointed with the Nameless Randoms Corky ban. First off, I think Corky is not very good on 12.4 with the with the changes that were made, especially having packaged later post Herald timing. I think that's a big thing. But really just the main thing that I saw is, we were talking about it while the draft was going on. I just said all 5 picks in order. Like, just they're going to D1 Lee Sin, then just go Jace Syndra, and then 4-5 Zyra Khan. And that's not because I have like some sage wisdom or anything. I just spent 20 minutes looking at what they picked and how they want to play. And to see a Corky ban and then to see them get exactly what they wanted, I was a bit disappointed in that. So, going into game 2, it's all good. This is the point of the series. Like, let's make some adjustments if you're Nameless Randoms. Let's take away some of that prio. Even though Maryville didn't necessarily use the prio in the most maximum value on their first clear, they were still able to use it for dives and be proactive. So you really just need to take away some of those picks. The Rise takeaway was quite good. Now, I think you also need to take away Jace, or you need to take away Syndra.
Yeah. Syndra's a big one. We showed that clip at the beginning. The scat of the week to cancel out the Gragas flash engage, that was disgusting. You want to make sure the APA does not get his hands on that champion.
Any other notes for Nameless Randoms or Maryville as we are getting closer to diving into our Game 2 smacks?
Ooh, well, I gave them my point about the reset champions. I think Pint is looking really solid in this matchup, as well as just in the game in his own right. So I would like to see them play more to him. You have these other carries on the team, maybe something more protective or more zone threat heavy than the Vex in mid lane. I think would work better in the later game team fights to activate Pint.
All right, so a couple draft adaptations, and maybe we see Nameless Random starting to initiate a couple of the plays across the map. That's what I have from my friends at the desk. But if you want to chip in with the conversation, you can always tweet at us with the hashtag #WeAreUnified, and your tweet could show up on the broadcast. As maybe you have some other thoughts at home, maybe you want to try and set these big gigabrains to the side, show off your own. Let us know what your thoughts are on the game, how you're enjoying these amateur matchups, and hey, who knows? Your tweet could end up on broadcast. But that's going to be enough from us on the desk. We are ready for Game 2. So, Dia, Rudude, take it away.